Our journey through the Overwatch World Cup 2019 rosters continues today as I move on to my polls runner-up and the highly demanded Team Finland. Just quickly before I start, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you guys for the support on this series, and I'm planning to get through as many nations as I can until the official rosters are announced. Team Finland went on a strange adventure in 2018. In qualifiers, they were placed within the same group as South Korea, and the expectation was that they'd have to compete with Team Russia for second place and a ticket to BlizzCon. Yet immediately, they almost defied the odds, coming as close as they could to arguably one of the biggest upsets in Overwatch history, taking South Korea to 5 maps, and after an excellent display, which came down to a 99% fight on Sanctum, with the rounds tied 1-1 on the 5th map, and despite having a 6v5 advantage, they collapsed, giving South Korea the great escape. At the time, this was massively discussed, with people thinking that perhaps everyone was closing in on the skill level of South Korea, where we saw how that panned out at BlizzCon. For Finland, meanwhile, then almost did a 180, having to drag out a victory against Russia, which booked their place. But that great early performance never found its feet again, as they were beat convincingly in the quarterfinals by the eventual runners-up, China, 3-0. Looking to rekindle the highs of last year, Saito returned as the head coach for the committee for 2019 for a second straight year, whilst Kunu was voted in as general manager, and Rocket as their community lead. Although they only needed to decide on 12 players initially, as they, like the UK, have to go through qualifying first before reaching BlizzCon, as they didn't get a top 5 seed. However, as usual, I'm only going to discuss a final 7-man roster, with some mention of a Tier 2 scene, even though Team Finland has a surprisingly large amount of Overwatch League talent, with 9 players currently in the league. One such player is the ever-requested Fraggy of the Philadelphia Fusion, who I think will be competing with his fellow Overwatch League player Elich Cloudy, and Gigantes, Milkyman, for the spot at the main tank position on the team. Starting with Fraggy, he led the line for Finland last year at this position, and I thought he played really well, considering all the flack he'd received throughout the inaugural season for his over-aggressive style. But obviously he's far more at home playing on Reinhardt. With Sado performing so poorly for most of this season, many have wanted to see Frag in the starting Philly lineup, to see how comparable he might have looked in this meta. But he's had no stage time, with reports of a rift between him and the team's star man Carpe. So despite the clear established synergy he has with most of the potential team, a lack of public performance on the stage might potentially count against him. Elich Cloudy, meanwhile, has seen playtime since joining the Paris Eternal, although he had to sit the first stage on the bench behind his teammate Bembest. Since getting his chance to display his quality, it'd be fair to say that he hasn't exactly grabbed the opportunity fantastically, with a number of subpar and mediocre performances, with my best compliments being directed towards his ability on Wrecking Ball and Orisa. And although this can be partially attributed to Paris' struggles, the fact that he's now back on the bench doesn't exactly give him a gleaming resume. Milkyman, however, has seen the most competitive playtime of the trio, with a number of great performances on Gigante over the past year, who currently sit tied atop of European contenders. And this Rhine play especially has really impressed me, well that's not to say his Winston's not good. This leaves me with a terribly difficult decision to make, with the only thing I'm confident about being that I wouldn't choose Elich Cloudy. It therefore comes down to a really tough choice between the consistently proven Tier 2 quality of Milkyman, or the assumption that Fraggy with his established synergy will perform up to last year's form. In the end though, I think I'd go with Milkyman here, just because I'm more confident in his overall performance at the moment, and far happier with his ability on Winston, unlike Fraggy, which gives the team a little more flexibility if the meta does continue to shift away from GOATs. Like at main tank, the flex tank position sees the other major difficult decision between the choice of RCK or Zappis. RCK has really had a breakout past year, with some great displays on Team Gigante, before being snatched up by the Dallas Fuel at the beginning of this season, before being subsequently traded for Note to the Boston Uprising. His diva has generally been good, but I think he's performed his best when flexing on Sombra. In many ways, he set a trend for a lot of teams these past couple of stages, having their flex tank play a variety of different heroes, including Sombra. And more often than not, especially towards the beginning of this season, and more recently, he's been devastating on her with very efficient EMPs. Although midway through this season, alongside the rest of the Boston lineup, he did have a slump of subpar performances, with his diva particularly underwhelming. Zappis, meanwhile, headed in the opposite direction after leaving Florida, as he took up the mantle as Gigante's new flex tank. And he, like Milkyman, has been finding great recent success with them. His diva has been really outstanding, and whilst he's shown less of a desire to flex around a lot, he's easily made up for it through consistent quality that's garnered him a lot of praise at the Tier 2 scene. On balance, I think I'd have to say that Zappis is the better diva player, but RCK offers you that flexibility, so it depends on which you prefer as to who you choose. But as I'm already going to have a Sombra option that I'll mention later on, as well as the fact that Zappis will be able to bring his pre-existing synergy with Milkyman to his side, I'd have to lean towards choosing him again for this year. Now at the support role, I really think that for another year, you have to stick with the duo of Big Goose and Shaz. Not only have they been paired up on both the LA Gladiators and Team Finland for the past 2 years, but cemented a very strong synergy and partnership between them, but the pair have been continually fantastic for LA in a variety of aspects of the game. Big Goose is one of the more underappreciated supports in the league right now, with amazing consistency and great ultimate usage on Lucio, with his only major negative point being his Mercy play that was shown to be worse last year than his Lucio. But having not seen it in a while, almost a year, it's harsh to assume it's still bad. Alongside him, Shaz has been an excellent Zenyatta with great ult usage, as well as a keen ability to get picks and final blows in teamfights, whilst also dealing a lot of damage, as well as an ability to flex onto other heroes if required as well. Whilst Joffrey probably gets to throw his hat into the main support ring, I just don't think he stood out as someone who can challenge two strong Overwatch League players right now. And the fact that Ripper's on the bench behind this pair I've chosen just tells me he's got clearly little to no chance of making the side, unless the Gladiators have been picking it wrong this entire time. Although it is fascinating, there are 3 players in the same role, from the same country, on the same team. Although I choose Big Goose and Shaz, arguably the 2 others competing, who miss out, make up the best substitute support duo of every nation involved right now, aside from South Korea, with Massa and Azupe. Both have been excellent in their own regard this past year. Massa has been a consistent positive alongside Dako on Atlanta, with incredible impact for his boots and environmental kills. While Zupe, like the other Giganti members I've mentioned, enjoyed a successful year with a really good ability to pick up kills. And I think it's the fact that Big Goose and Shaz are such a solid partnership already that prevents this pair from breaking through, but feasibly it could happen if the coaching staff want to trial this. With their recent performances this stage, there's no doubt in my mind that Linksa and Taimu, as Overwatch League talent, will again feature on 2 of the 3 DPS spots for Team Finland. Whilst they both struggled to get stage time and show off their best when the meta was centred around traditional 3-3 goats. With recent team switches towards more DPS, both have begun to look more comfortable and playing up to their potential. Linksa has been fantastic on the Outlaws this stage, particularly on Widowmaker, and has really started to re-establish himself as a threat he was during the inaugural season. Taimu, meanwhile, finally got on stage against New York Excelsior for Dallas, and he didn't look like he missed a beat, with a surprisingly impressive performance, especially on Sombra, which is becoming used more and more often, which is why I bring him in as the option, rather than RCK, who I left out earlier. Obviously it makes sense to then select Davin alongside this pair, as he was involved in this trio and set up for Team Finland last year, and with most of his trio being rather flexible, they cover most of the DPS hero pool. That's not even mentioning his synergy with Giganti players that I brought in, who Davin has excelled alongside the past year, making him an almost perfect option I personally go for. Aside from this trio, other names I've heard mentioned in the Tier 2 scene are Baito and Olu, but the pair really haven't been able to establish themselves firmly within the contenders scene, and their resumes and performances just aren't high enough to match the 3 I've already chosen, so they're probably not on the cards for this year. In summary, my final 7-man roster for Team Finland will be Milky Man at main tank, Zappis at flex tank, Big Goose at main support, Shaz at flex support, and lastly, the DPS trio of Linksa, Taimu, and Davin, which depending upon the meta could once again be a really scary team that could cause problems for favourites. And with that, we reach the end of my Team Finland Overwatch World Cup video, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Next on the list is Team France, then Sweden, so if you enjoyed and don't want to miss out, then please like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for this continuing competitive Overwatch coverage and content, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.